Hey friends, so today's garden planning video is going to demonstrate how I plan my garden. Now this is specifically planning where I plant all of my stuff in my vegetable garden, in my existing vegetable garden. I'll put together another video that I want to do on planning a new garden layout and on landscaping, but I'll put those in a separate video because I think this one might be a long one. If you have any questions at all, please put them down in the comments below, like, share. We really need your help to make this channel useful to you and to others. All right, so you're all set for sketching out your garden. You've got your amounts that you want to grow. We worked this out in the previous video, or in a previous video, talking about harvest planning. So when you get your harvest in, letting you know how much you need to grow, how much square foot space you need to give each thing. I've made a brief list of extra things that I want to grow this year that I didn't account for in the past. And I've got books. So I'm going to show you a couple of garden plans that I've had in the past. So this is the one that I made my last year's garden with. I'm just going to show it to you a little bit closer. So there you go. You can see sort of how I've written it out. So I'm going to do this with you right now. All right. So I use graphing paper. It's very helpful for me just to see, just to have everything sort of to scale so I can get an idea of how much space I've got, and it just helps me, especially because I'm square foot planning for the most part. And I just have a tendency to enjoy scale drawings. So this is how I make my garden plan. Now obviously one of my gardens is a circular garden, and I was not thinking about that when I designed said circular garden. That will make planning the garden this year a little bit more complicated, but nevertheless we shall move on. So this was the garden plan that I drew up for the round garden last year. And we'll be planning both gardens today. So that's why I'm going to do them in two separate books. That way I can have them both side by side. All right. So I'm going to start with my existing raised bed garden. And just for continuity, I'm going to do that in this book, and I'm going to use this book just for the circular garden. Sorry for the camera shake there. Just realizing I'm slapping the table a little too hard. So here we go. Zoom in a little bit. All right, now usually I would do that with a mechanical pencil and eraser, but I think it'll be easier for you to see if I use my pen, and this pen has a friction eraser, so I can still erase if I make a mistake, which will happen. First things first, I'm going to make note of the directions. And then I will start sketching. So we've got 9 foot by 3 foot beds. So that should be 9 right there. And then we've got a 4 foot gap, and then 9 feet on the other side. So our beds are 9 foot by 3 foot. Now this is an approximate because our beds are made of woven poplar, and so they are not super exact. I've got 5 sets of raised beds. They have 2 foot spacing. That makes it really easy to sketch, by the way. If you go with like 2.5 foot spacing, then you're always going to have to be like measuring half squares if you're doing it with this method. Just something to think about. Another thing to think about is when you are building a garden space from scratch, or when there isn't an existing garden or when you're trying to rebuild a garden in whatever style you prefer. There's a couple things to take into consideration. Just erase that extra line. Oh good, you can see that on the camera. That's good. I'm glad to see that. So I'm just going to keep going and sketching out the edges of the beds. You want to take into consideration, especially if you have mobility issues, height, depth as well. So I know a lot of people like to make their raised beds 4 feet wide with the assumption that they can reach in 2 feet from either side. I find that a little bit too deep and too uncomfortable for myself. I like to do all of my weeding sitting down. And so I gave myself 3 foot width beds. That way I only have to reach into each bed from either side 1.5 feet. And I find that to be quite workable, especially consider if you are going to be growing stuff on trellises. I like putting my peas right up against one wall. So if I have any trellising in my vegetable beds, if it's something that I actually need to pick frequently and not just at the end of the year, then I want it up against one edge so that I can easily pick without bending over too far, because that'll definitely increase the exertion required and as well balance required in order to pick. So with that in mind, if I put a fence up against one wall here, then that'll grow up tall. I won't be able to reach through it or past it to weed right up this edge. So I don't want this edge to be, or I don't want the bed to be too wide because I don't want to have to reach across 3 feet from one side if there's a trellis on the other side. So that'll depend a little bit on your mobility issues. You might want to make some temporary beds and just see what kind of spacing works for you, or you could even mock it up. You know, put some planters together, measure the distance between them, and then pretend that you can only access it from one side and see how far you can reach or how comfortable it is for you to decide how big to make your beds. I gave myself a nice wide path down the middle of the garden. This is a 4 foot path, and I wanted it to be nice and wide because I wanted to be able to get my wheelbarrow or my wagon right down the middle of the garden. And then I went and made my paths here only 2 feet wide. I find that actually a little bit narrow. I wish I'd made them just a touch wider, but it is passable for me. If I ever end up in a wheelchair full time though, then that's gonna have to change because I would not be able to get a wheelchair down these aisles at all. But if I was in a wheelchair full time, then I would also need them to be considerably higher. So I'm sort of just taking into consideration where I'm currently at and where I expect to be at with my health. I don't expect to be in a wheelchair until I'm quite a bit more mature, unless something else happens in my life. But it's good to think of these things, especially if you know your health is declining in a particular direction. Prepare for the future so that you don't have to make changes later that are going to cost a lot of money for somebody else to fix it for you because you weren't thinking ahead. So yeah, this is my, I got 5. They're just not all on the screen. There we go. So that was the problem there. So that is the raised bed garden. These are raised up about 10 to 12 inches, although the soil can sink down a bit over time. And I'm hoping with adding compost every year that that'll help build them back up again. So that is the raised bed garden. Now I need to sketch the circular garden. All right, so there is our basic bed shape in the circle garden. You have a good name for this kind of garden? Would you call it a knot garden or a maze garden, or what would you call it? Anyways, I've really enjoyed the shape. I enjoyed putting structure in it in the summer and seeing what that structure looks like. I'd love to see some of your guys' garden plans. If you want to send me images of your garden plans or your layouts, if you want some advice or just general encouragement, then you can check out my Instagram account over at Pumpkin Patch Garden. I can't remember exactly what it is. I'll post it up on the put a link in the description box. You can follow. Yeah, and you can send me your garden photos. Just tag me in them or whatever, and I can see them and see what y'all are up to and see your garden plans. So this is the circle garden sketched out. We've got the in-ground garden and how it's laid out in the garden or in the yard is like this. So the house is over here, and then I walk out on the deck and walk basically down the garden through like that. So this is the south end over here. And so it's just a good idea to give a little, I don't know why I wrote 4. It's going for an end. Sometimes my brain just does not understand the difference between numbers and letters. Okay. So the first thing you want to consider is, I'm sorry for shaking the table again. The first thing you want to consider is the height of things you're growing and what kind of support they might need. So what I normally do is I work from the north end of my garden backwards with just keeping in mind the height of different things. All right. I'm referring back to this. So what do I have for tall stuff? I have peas and beans and tomatoes and corn are my tallest. Plants. So let's see if I can just zoom you in just a little bit more. It's going to be a little bit more tilted, but I just want you to be able to see everything that I'm doing. Okay. And for some reason, for me, it makes more sense like this, because I guess I read left to right. So this is the furthest north, this is the furthest south. And I should also make note that my shed sits roughly here. Something like that. So in the afternoon it casts a shadow, and I'm just going to sketch this out quickly. Casts a shadow probably like that for part of the day. When there's most shade, that's an area that's not going to get as much sun, but it's not super critical because it does still get all the full south sun. But it's good to make note of where your shady spots are. If you need to sort of color code it, you could use a pencil crayon and just very lightly sketch over the areas that are shadier naturally, if that helps you to figure out where to put stuff. So tomatoes. Tomatoes depend a little bit on what sort of structure I'm going for I really like the A-frame that I built this past year, and you'll see that in any of my videos from the summer or the fall. But I do also really like the tomato ladders from Vessi's. So we're going to figure out, I have written down 14 tomato plants. I think that's the same that I had last year. And I was looking for a similar amount, but a higher production within that volume. What I should do is I should write down all my tomato varieties so I don't forget them. And I'll usually do that. I normally do that right here, so that's what I'm gonna do. For everything, I don't necessarily write down the variety of everything that I'm going to plant in every spot. Sometimes, like with the peas, I might just make a spot and then later, as I'm seeding, write down which variety went where, just so I can keep a record of where things went. But for tomatoes, I like to plan where I'm putting them because the different ones will need different heights and different treatments and stuff. And so I like to group them together or separate them. Or just be finicky for fun. I think those are all my tomatoes. So I'm going to do one Cherokee Purple. I'm going to do one pineapple. I've had both of them in the past. I do appreciate their flavor, but I'm also unconvinced about the productiveness of them. So that's my choices there. Prudent Purple, I'll do one of those. How many have I got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So theoretically, I could do doubles of 2 of them and still stick within my 14. But because 2 of them are cherries, I think I'm going to give myself room for 16. We're going to do 2 of those. 1 of those, 1 of those, 2 of those. I'm going to do 1 Scotia, just because they're really, really quick. Brandywine, I've heard such good things about them. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. There we go. So the Amish paste and the Scotia, I know, are both not as tall. And I need to double check the Bumblebee Mix and the Tiger Cherry, but I'm guessing both of those are indeterminate, so they're going to need space to climb as well. So I think Scotia and Amish Paste and the Costoluto Fiorentino are all sort of my canning tomatoes. Alright. So I want my tomatoes to get full sun, but I also want some So I'm going to put a spot right here. Just give a general area. I know that a foot square is too little for most tomatoes. But I'm gonna put my tiger and bumblebee cherry tomatoes right at the top of the garden, so that they're the ones I see first, and I'll be able to see from my window when they start ripening, and that'll make me happy. So I'll put these on towers, and then I'll maybe put my tomatoes in this area. I have to admit, I have a fondness for symmetry, but symmetry is not everything. I think I'm gonna put some of my tomatoes right at the end here, because they're nice and tall, and that'll give them full south exposure, which they will enjoy. All right. So, all right, going to block off that much space for tomatoes on either side. Last year I used about 8 feet, about that much, and put 4 plants in. I know that I could have definitely spaced them tighter, so I'm going to give myself the full 9 feet this time. Although my A-frames are only 8 feet. Okay, no, we're gonna go 8 feet again, just because then I don't have to build new frames. Alright, so we're gonna go 8 feet, and we're going to put in, I think we're gonna put 5 in this time. So, I'm gonna start with a purple on each end. Prudent. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna open this up. I hope you can see what I'm doing here. But I need to be able to read my list, so I'm just gonna stick that up there. So this will be the purple Cherokee, this will be the Prudent purple. And then we're going to go with pineapple. And on this side, we're gonna do the terracotta. And then I've got 2 yellows. Wishes. And then in the center, I'll do the 2, oh, I've only got 3. Okay, so I can do Brandywine. And the Fiorentino. I'm just going to put in sort of shortened names, and then I know what sort of order I'm looking at, and I don't know, it pleases me to have them be symmetrical. So they'll get spaced out, obviously. I've just written them down like that to use the space. Then I just need to decide where to put my Amish paste, my Scotia, and the Florentino. I think it should cover the rest. Yeah, okay. So I did like having some tomatoes in this garden last year, so I think I'm going to do something similar. I'm going to do the Amish pastes here, and then I'll do the Scotia and the last Florentino. And I'll put those up on the same stands I used last year. Alright, so that's my tomatoes sorted. Now, what I like to do is I like to make use of the shade cast by my tomatoes to grow things that don't do very well in full sun. So I will put some spinach here and put my greens in here. This side will go corn salad. And then for the fun of it, I've got a little gem. So let's go a little gem, a red fire lettuce, and a flashy butter gem, and I think I've got a tennis ball iceberg. Tennis ball. And for the sake of symmetry, we'll go gem, red. Although, what did I tell myself last year? 8 square feet is too many, is what I wrote down, and I'm giving myself 8 square feet again. Is this a mistake? Quite probably. So I'm going to have to change that, because if I get completely overrun with lettuce, then it'll be a year before I can eat lettuce again. That's what happened in the summer. There was so much lettuce to eat that I just about got sick of it. Granted, I've got more heading lettuce now, so it's not a pick salad every day, but I'm going to give myself 3 feet on each side, so 6, so it's modified, but I'm just going to give myself 3 feet, and I think, no, I want to grow more lettuce. I have too many kinds. This is my problem. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, because I want my lettuces to head up, I'm going to give them more space, because I don't want to do multiple reseedings necessarily. I just want to harvest heads and now and again. And I'm going to double sow all of them so that there's at least 2, possibly 4 lettuces in each square foot. That'll keep them a little bit smaller and more containable. But I'm just going to, for the sake of brevity, write lettuce in the box, because that makes more sense. All right. Then what else do I have that likes some shade? I could put some more cabbages in, as long as I'm willing to cover them. I'm gonna put broccoli in, I think. I think this is gonna be broccoli. Maybe I'll go all the way around the corner with the broccoli, we'll see. Broccoli seemed to do all right on the north side of things. So that's all my broccoli sprouts sorted then, and that's that bed totally resolved. All right. I think this year I'm going to grow my corn in the in-ground garden, because last year the wind really knocked it over because it was raised up. The wind got to it more, and there was a bit of a struggle there with the wind. So I've got a couple different types of corn, and because I'm growing more than one kind of corn and my garden is fairly small, I'll be putting some in the pumpkin patch but my sweet corn I will still grow in the garden. And I think my plan is, I've got to think about this, because I want sun. Okay, so the plan is we're going to put in corn in here. That should definitely be enough sweet corn for us. And then I'm going to put peas. Peas don't mind a little bit more shade, so I'm going to put actually my snow peas in here. And that should do well. So that fencing there, they'll need trellising because they are a climbing pea. So I'll put in a fence there. That'll help protect this corn from winds. Our prevailing winds, this is good to know, our prevailing winds come from the north and the west, so like that. So if you're thinking about where to grow stuff, it's a good idea to think of how to build wind blocks. So I know my corn gets knocked over easily if it's very windy, so I'm going to actually put them on the southeast side of the garden bed and then put a tall climbing structure here so that that'll block excessive winds and prevent my corn from getting knocked over again. There'll still be enough wind to pollinate it, don't worry. All right. Now, there were some things specifically last year that I grew in the in-ground garden that I wish I had grown in the above-ground garden because the carrots specifically got really stunted by hitting the really hard compacted soil that I hadn't turned over at all. So they're gonna go in the raised bed garden this year, and I've got 3 kinds of carrots this year. So let's go ahead and put some carrots in. Where do we want carrots? No, I'm not gonna put carrots in just yet. Yes, I will. I need to figure out my structures first. That's what I was working on. So let's not stop there. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and put teepees. Sometimes my brain, it's amazing to me. That thing should be a square. Nope, let's draw it as a triangle. That thing should be a triangle. Let's draw it as a square. Okay, so this, there'll be bean teepees in each corner again. This year I've got a greater variety of beans to grow on teepees. So we've got, these will all be beans anyway. And I think we're gonna stick with, no, we're not gonna stick with it. Okay. I've got runner beans. I think I'm gonna put runner beans on all of these. I've got some runner beans, so these 2 will be runner scarlet. And these will be sunset. So these are going to be quite tall structures, so I want to put my tallest climbing beans on them. And that should give them enough support. All right, and we're going to put beets in here. Okay, we're going to put beets in this area. And then I think what I might do, what I did before, which was basically put a short climbing pea on the outside edges again. And put turnips here. And then I think I'm also going to put the onions in the in-ground bed for similar reasons as the corn. They got all knocked over last year. So I'm going to put in a big section of, we're going to do half yellow and half purple pole beans, and then we're going to do onions here. And that'll again protect the tops from getting knocked over. This past year, all our onions got knocked over at the end of June, and so they didn't hardly have a chance to grow before the tops get knocked over. So we're going to put them in a protected spot, and that'll be good. All right, I'm going to put like all my cabbages in one raised bed, and I'm going to cover it with fleece to keep the little worms out. But we have more peas that we could put up, so let's put up another section of peas, sweet peas. So this, I'm not exactly sure how long of a stretch that is. It doesn't really matter. But we're going to put peas there. I think that is going to be the green arrow, because they showed that they can climb quite well. Green arrow. You know, I am tempted actually to put my cabbage in one of these beds because this is a lot more space than these ones have in them. And my fleece is narrower and longer. So I think I'm going to put all my brassicas in here. So cabbage, kale, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. So that's that accounted for. I think we'll maybe put potatoes in here. Didn't have potatoes in here last year. Although I could use this area for sprawling stuff. That would work really well. So I'm gonna maybe save this for melons. We're gonna make this melons. All the melons. All right, and we're going to put some zucchini. And some patty pans in here, I think, just to make use of the space. I feel like I'm forgetting so many things. But alas, here we are. All right, so that's this garden pretty much accounted for. What I have left to grow is I need some more peas. I need some more beans, both dry and green beans. I need carrots and potatoes, cucumbers. Corn is counted for. I know what I could put here. I could put some kohlrabi in. I'm just gonna add some kohlrabi this year. Now, this isn't a super strict plan. This is just gives me a bit of an idea. It gives me an idea of how many plants to start ahead of time, and just an idea of where to begin putting things together. It also gives me something to do in the winter before I'm allowed to plant all the seeds. So that's where we're at. So we need some more beans and peas. I had my beans and peas in this one last year. This bed was the one that my corn was in, and I know corn sucks a lot out of the soil. So we're going to do that again. We're going to put peas over here. This will be the dalve. And then this will be Jacob's cattle. That should work well. Since we're going for a little bit of symmetry, we'll just alter it a little bit. We'll put here some more green beans. What was in this bed last year? Peppers and onions were in that one last year. All right. That'll be fine. So we'll go with I have so many more beans. Okay, we're going to go with half Mother Stollard beans and half Trail of Tears beans. And then this would be a good place to put all my carrots. So I only did about a 7x2 last year with carrots of the one type. No, I had more in the in-ground garden, but I was happy with that quantity. Okay, so we're going to go with about 6 feet here of bolero carrots. And we're going to put some carrots in here just for fun and a fun design. This will be the purple. And for cosmic purple, I think that's the same one I had last year that was really good. And then I have long reds, except they're not actually long. So that'll be fun. All right. How do I put some cucumbers right at the front? Let me just put one bed fully into cucumbers. Cucumbers. Very good. So that'll definitely be enough for what I want. And what I can do there is I can put a climbing cucumber at the back and creeping cucumbers at the front. And that way they won't shade each other out too much. All right, and then we're going to do potatoes. And that's going to be the Alaska Bloom. My favorite potato variety to date. And then we're going to put half, last year I only did 18x3. Sorry, 6x3 square feet of potatoes in Alaska, or in the purple. The purples did good. If I put a whole nother bed into purples, then I'll have some to give away as well. So I think that's what we're gonna do there. All right, what do we have left? We need some more. Oh, we got our peas. Although more peas would not be amiss. Do like peas. So I've got 9 feet there, and then my guess is like 11 or 12 feet there. Which is close to the 20 some that I wanted, but a few more wouldn't be a bad thing. This is where the potatoes were last year, so we're going to put some more peas in there. And I think we're going to put some green beans, the bush type. That's, I think, Blue Lake bush beans. In there. We've got more room. What will we do with all of it? I think we're going to put some more brassicas right here. Is that a good idea? Sure. Maybe we'll put the sprouts there. Or the cauliflower. Something we can cover anyway. Wrong eraser. And I have found that I have really enjoyed green beans this past winter. I wish I had grown more of them. So we're going to give ourselves some more space here. I am growing something called Thai Soldier long bean, which is supposed to be a bush long bean, but I've also seen from reviews that maybe it's not quite so contained. So I'm thinking I'll give it a trellis as well as some space to sprawl. So long beans, and then maybe some more just pole beans. And we've still got this amount of space, and this, I love building onto my garden. I have so much room. I could put in more tomatoes. Why don't I? I like this plan. This is a good plan. Is this a good plan? Okay. We're going to put in, what are we going to put here? You have to look over everything. You know, I'm just going to leave this as it is for now, and I'll finish filling it in as I think about it. But there's the comprehensive, well, for me, pretty comprehensive garden planning. So thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.